Hello gardeners, welcome to my December garden guide where I've rounded up 30 different veggies and crops that you can plant right now to keep your harvest going through the winter. December is also a prime month for indoor seed sowing if you're planning on growing out your own transplants from seed in time for spring planting. So this guide is packed with planting inspiration. If you're new here, hello and welcome. My name is Jara. I've been gardening all of my life and I'm a professional seed and plant nursery. I love to share my knowledge and teach others how to garden and grow food, so you've come to the right place if you want to improve your gardening skills. To keep you on track this month, I've created some free resources for you available in the description below. You'll find a free printable PDF checklist of what you can plant right now, information about my next live garden class right here on my YouTube channel, and a link to my December garden tasks, tips, and reminders video, which goes live Friday, December 6th. Make sure to check the description so you don't miss out. Now let's dive into this December guide. I've got unique planting ideas for both hot and cold climate gardeners, so no matter where you're located, there's something here for you. Let's start with a few last chance crops, meaning hurry up and get these planted in December or you're going to miss out on your window of opportunity. If you're a hot climate gardener, meaning no snow, December is your last chance to hurry up and direct sow seeds for peas like snow peas, snap peas, and sweet shelling peas, so you just harvest them all out before it gets too hot. Peas are very sensitive to heat. They start shriveling up and turning brown if it's just way too hot for them. And if that happens, forget about a harvest. Southern gardeners like zones 9 and up, hurry up and direct sow some seeds right now. Peas are so easy to grow and start producing in about 2 months from seed, which is very fast, and it's a great crop choice for beginner gardeners. One of my personal favorites is a snow pea variety called Luang Prabang, which originates from Thailand because it produces very large snow pea pods and handles warm weather better than other cultivars I have tried growing. I offer seeds for this variety along with many other vegetables and plants on my website, so feel free to check it out. I also have a YouTube tutorial on growing peas and almost every single veggie crop I'm about to mention, which takes you step by step from seed all the way to harvest. I'll link all of them below so you guys can easily find them. If you have not planted your seed garlic yet, December is your last chance to get some into the ground. This is the ideal planting time for hot climate gardeners like zones 9 and up who want to grow elephant garlic or already pre-vernalized soft neck garlic varieties. Cold climate gardeners need to start thinking about what varieties of hard neck garlic you want to plant in spring and start placing your orders right now. A lot of people are asking me where to find seed garlic because I don't sell it. Just do a quick Google search or ask around in your local gardening Facebook groups to see if you can find a local source. If you have purchased seed garlic from a reputable online website, please comment below and share the website name to help other gardeners find some too. If you grow short day onion varieties, which is the South USA or hot climate gardeners, December is your last chance to plant onion transplants into the garden. It is too late to just get around to starting them from seed. I do sell short day onion transplants on my website if you need some. Conversely, those of you with last spring frost dates in March need to start purchasing long day onion seeds so you can start sowing them indoors. They just take forever, like 3 months to get to transplant size from seed. Start them now so they're ready to be planted as soon as your last spring frost date has passed. Of course, indoors only because it's just way too cold outside. If you're late growing your onions from seed, you can sow seeds for bunching onions. I like to sow a little bunch of seeds in a mound, cover it with some soil, and keep it moist so they germinate quickly. If all of them germinate, then I leave them. They will grow okay close together. There is not too many different varieties of bunching onions, but there are some red and purple stem varieties that are just really unique and fun to grow. December is also the last time I recommend zones 9 and up to direct sow seeds for carrots. This is just to ensure you harvest them all out before it gets too hot. The heat will stunt their growth and make them taste bitter. It takes about 4 months for them to be ready for harvest from seed, which will land you in April. That's right before it gets unbearably hot in my garden. April is springtime for those of you in a state north of me, but here in Florida, it's already summertime. So yeah, if you're in a hot climate with no snow, hurry up and direct sow some carrot seeds today. Garden zones 9 and above should also hurry up and direct sow seeds for spinach so you can begin harvesting before it just gets too hot. When planting things grown just to eat their leafy greens, they really just need some nitrogen, which is the nutrient responsible for leafy green growth. Therefore, I begin by raking in blood meal into the soil, which is a good organic source of nitrogen. Then I sprinkle the seeds over the soil surface, pat them down, and gently water them in with the mist or shower setting on my hose and sprayer. Keep the soil moist and they will germinate within a few days. I also advise that December is the last month to hurry up and plant your seed potato for hot climate gardeners. Potatoes are very susceptible to diseases and pests, so I like to grow them during the cooler parts of the year when disease and pest pressure is just naturally down. I like to grow mine in grow bags because I just flip them over at harvest time. I also really like early maturing varieties or cultivars that are ready for harvest in under 75 days, so I get them out of the ground sooner rather than later. The more time those potatoes spend in the soil or in general just growing in your garden, the more chance that they're going to get infested by some sort of disease or pest. If your last spring frost date falls in January or you get no frost, then you can start sowing seeds for all sorts of squash, both summer and winter squash, indoors only, to get a head start on the season. I try to plant squash out as soon as possible before all the pests, especially the caterpillars that like to chew up my squash plants, or the dreaded squash bugs or squash vine borers, start to wake up from their winter dormancy and just take over. I try to get them transplanted around the middle or second week of January. I might get 1 or 2 cold fronts, so I just cover small squash seedlings with frost protection or cut the bottom of plastic jugs and flip them over to act like a greenhouse. But after that, they really start to take off and I can harvest before the pest pressure just gets out of control. I like to sow 2 squash seeds per solo cup because they grow fast and the solo cup is big enough to house the entire seedling for the duration of their growth until they're ready to be transplanted. I just listed off a bunch of things for hot climate gardeners to hurry up and plant right now because the concern here is to harvest before it just gets too hot. But I also have plenty of ideas for my cold climate gardener friends too. The focus here is veggies and crops that are extremely cold tolerant. The first that comes to mind are leeks. Cold climate gardeners can start sowing seeds for leeks indoors to grow out transplants in time for spring planting. Leeks take over a year to grow and be ready for harvest because they are biennials. So cold climate gardeners will be harvesting next winter, which is completely fine. Winter leek varieties are cold hardy down to garden zone 3. Start sowing seeds indoors now because they can take a few months to get to transplant size, just like with onions. My next idea is a lesser known leafy green that goes by several names, and that's mache, if I'm saying that correctly, also called corn salad or lamb's lettuce. This plant can tolerate cold down to about 5 degrees Fahrenheit. It has a flavor kind of like a nutty spinach and can be used like salad greens. So both cold climate and hot climate gardeners can direct sow seeds for it right now in December. The most cold hardy vegetable I know of is an Asian green called wu choy, which is a type of bok choy. It can handle temperatures down to -5 degrees Fahrenheit. Both cold climate and hot climate gardeners can direct sow seeds right now. If you're expecting cold weather like below 30 degrees Fahrenheit, I recommend that you do cover newly germinated seedlings just to keep them a little warm until the plants mature. You can use frost protection covers or cut the bottom of milk jugs and cover the seedlings over to make a mini greenhouse. Now let's move on to things that need to be sowed from seed indoors right now so you grow your own transplants, because spring is right around the corner for a lot of us. Raise your hand if your last spring frost date is in January, February, or March, or you garden in an area that has no last spring frost date because you barely get a frost or winter like my South Florida people. Well, it's time to start sowing certain veggie crops indoors so they're ready to be transplanted in the early part of next year. Frost dates are the most important fact you need to know about your gardening area because that is what will dictate when you start sowing seeds or planting things out in the garden, not garden zones. People often confuse the two. So those of you with last spring frost dates in January through March, this is what you should be doing right now in December. First, my absolute favorite thing to grow, and that's tomatoes. They take 10 to 12 weeks to grow from seed if you're using shop lights or a bright window as the light source for your seedlings. They take 6 weeks if you use grow lights. I use grow lights because it makes such a huge difference in the health and vigor of warm season crops like tomatoes. I will link in the description to the grow lights that I like to use. My target date for transplanting them into the ground is around the 3rd week of January. So I need to sow tomato seeds indoors right now in December so they're ready. I have a ton of unique and delicious tomato seed varieties on my website for you all if you want to grow the same tomatoes from my garden to yours. I also have a whole tomato playlist right here on YouTube with tomato review and taste test videos, how to sow tomatoes from seed, like showing my whole entire method for that. So I will link all of that stuff below. Next, we have peppers. These are so slow growing from seed. Mine take around 3 months to get to transplant size. Even when using grow lights, heat mats, fertilizer, they just take forever. But I love the variety of pepper cultivars there are when you decide to grow them from seed. I am sowing them indoors in December to transplant once all danger of frost has passed. They get stunted easily if exposed to cold. So they get transplanted into my garden like the end of February or in March, just a few weeks after my tomatoes. Another crop I will be sowing indoors in December is eggplant. Grocery store eggplant is just gross. I didn't like eggplant until I started growing it for myself in my garden because the flavor and texture is a million times better. This year I'm growing a ton of Thai and African varieties that have high disease and heat tolerance. Right now I'm super excited to grow Thai pea eggplants, which have a nice popping, crisp kind of texture, especially when added into soups or curries. I'll have seeds for that soon on my website. If you didn't know, both peppers and eggplants are perennial as long as the cold or a pest or disease doesn't kill the plant. So I really love to grow a lot of them. The next veggie idea is for cold climate gardeners only, and that's artichokes. So Grow artichoke seeds indoors so you can transplant them outside as soon as your last spring frost date has passed. Artichoke grows best in garden zone 7 and below, and it's a perennial plant that looks very ornamental. Gardeners in zones 8 and up who want to grow asparagus from seed, December is a good time to sow them indoors. They are pretty slow growing, but should get to size in about 3 or 4 months. I recommend you choose heat-tolerant varieties like UC 157 or the purple-colored varieties because they grow better in hot climates. Sow a few seeds in a solo cup to house it the entire growing time so you don't have to waste time potting up. Alright, that pretty much sums up all the things you should start sowing from seed indoors in December to grow your own spring transplants. Let's move on to some other crop ideas. If you're gardening in a mild winter climate, you can direct sow seeds for fava beans. Out of all the bean type things you can grow like bush beans, cowpeas, or yard-long beans, fava beans are the most cold tolerant. Their ideal temperature range is about the 60s, which is the months of December through February for a lot of hot climate gardeners. And no worries if a cold front moves through the area because they normally don't get cold damage until it falls to around 10 degrees Fahrenheit. Some of us can also continue to transplant broccoli like zones 9 and 8. Those of you in zone 7 and below can also transplant broccoli if you're able to grow in like a greenhouse or cover them up when temperatures drop below 26 degrees Fahrenheit. Broccoli is pretty cold hardy, tolerating some hard freezes. If you struggle to grow broccoli because the heads bolt or go to the flowering stage before it's ready for harvest, then try growing sprouting broccoli cultivars. It's just way easier. Even easier than sprouting broccoli is Chinese broccoli, also known as kailan or gailan. Chinese broccoli is a popular Asian leafy stem vegetable that can be started from direct sowing seeds right now. Unlike traditional broccoli, which forms a large head in the center, Chinese broccoli is grown for its thick stems, even though the entire thing is edible. The flavor reminds me of a mix between broccoli, asparagus, and rapini. It's so much more easier to grow than broccoli because you're growing it for the stems instead of waiting for a large head to form. It comes in the standard green variety and a really cool purple colored variety. Similar to broccoli, you can also transplant kale, which survives if covered by snow. The curly leaf and Russian varieties are the most cold hardy kale cultivars. Kale, along with many members of the brassicas family like mustard greens, broccoli, and cabbage, all taste sweeter when exposed to some frost. I would still cover baby transplants though, at least until they get more established and can handle more cold. If you're a hot climate gardener, you can also transplant kale, but I just recommend in a spot that gets afternoon sun so they're protected from the heat during the summer. Another idea for everyone is Napa cabbage. Unlike standard heading cabbages that take 90 to 120 days to mature, some varieties of Napa cabbage are ready in about 65 days. Hot climate gardeners can straight up just direct sow seeds. Cold climate gardeners can also direct sow if you can protect tender seedlings or sow them indoors and then transplant them outside once they're just a little bit bigger. I think Napa cabbage is a great intro into growing heading cabbages because they are just a little bit easier. You can get the hang of growing them and apply those skills or experience to grow heading cabbages later on. Now let's talk about some leafy greens and things I like to grow to throw in my winter salads. Hot climate gardeners can just direct sow seeds for all of these things, while cold climate gardeners will have to cover tender new seedlings that have germinated to protect them from the cold until the plants are just a little bit more mature, or sow the seeds indoor to grow out some transplants. One of my absolute favorite leafy greens is tatsoi, which looks very similar to spinach. I start direct sowing seeds in October, with about March being the last month. It can tolerate a wide range of temperatures. Cold climate gardeners can also direct sow seeds for tatsoi, but it will need protection if temperatures drop below about 26 degrees Fahrenheit. This is a huge patch of tatsoi that I direct sowed in the same manner that I direct sowed the spinach shown earlier in this video. Tatsoi comes in the standard green, but also comes in red and purple. For some interesting texture contrast in salads, I like to grow an Asian green called Mizuna. It has delicate feathery leaves with a mild peppery flavor that adds a fresh kick to salads, stir fries, and soups. It is easy to grow because pests and diseases don't really bother it at all. It comes in several colors like red or lime green, which just really stand out when mixed with a salad. A highly underutilized green that I love to grow is Swiss chard. It tolerates a lot of cold, but also a lot of heat. As plants continue to survive in my garden for many months, all the way until about the middle of my summer. I like to grow bright lights Swiss chard because of its bright neon colored stems, but if you're a cold climate gardener, I recommend that you just grow the regular green variety because it's more cold tolerant. For the best flavor and texture, harvest Swiss chard to use as baby salad greens. Up next, we have lettuce, which is a cool season green that can tolerate temperatures down to about 20 degrees Fahrenheit. There are some varieties that can withstand much colder temperatures, like a variety called Winter Marvel, which is said to be okay down to 5 degrees. If you're in a hot climate where winter temperatures just fluctuate a lot from hot to cold, choose romaine or oak leaf lettuce that tolerate heat waves better than others. Also, darker colored lettuces like super red romaine handle the heat a lot better. The next 3 leafy green ideas belong in the chicory family and are also not very popular in standard American garden and cuisine, but should be for their unique flavor, color, and texture. Italians use chicories a lot in salads and cook down in risottos, for example. They are pretty cold hardy, so a good crop idea to plant during the winter. So first up, we have regular chicory. That's just what I'm going to call it so I can explain. These chicories grow kind of like a big butterhead lettuce. Right now, I'm obsessed with a variety called Variegata di Castelfranco because it's just so pretty. And then there are some sugarloaf chicories that are more sweet and crunchy. Second, we have radicchio, which is a type of chicory. I commonly grow a variety called Pala Rosa because I love its deep magenta color with white stems. Just looks really pretty in a salad. These plants get really big, like a rosette shape, the size of a huge heading cabbage, and then you harvest the radicchio out of the middle once it's big enough. And third, we have endive. Regular endive, also called Belgian endive, grows like a small cream-colored cone shape with smooth leaves. To grow perfect Belgian endive, you direct sow the seeds outdoors, cut off all the leaves off from the roots, and then bring it inside to replant and grow in the dark. That's how they get the leaves to be so light in color. It's a whole process, a fun experiment, but not as straightforward as just growing them outside. You can grow another type of endive called frisée completely outdoors, so it's just much easier. Frisée looks like a flat head of lettuce with very frilly leaves. It's best used raw in salads and probably has the most mild flavor when compared to all of the endive and chicory things that I just mentioned. So that sums up my leafy green suggestions. I have 3 more veggie crop ideas to plant in December for you. Up next, we have bok choy. Both cold and hot climate gardeners can direct sow seeds for bok choy in December. It's a quick seed to harvest vegetable. There is a variety of bok choy called extra dwarf that is ready for harvest in just 30 days, while the standard sized bok choys can take around 60 days. Personally, my favorite is Canton bok choy for its crisp, juicy stems, and purple bok choy because it just looks so dang cool. I find bok choy growing in my garden even in June, so it tolerates a huge range of temperatures, and I have it growing the majority of the year except for the hottest months like July and August. Next up are beets. I love growing them because they're fantastic for juicing and they keep well in storage for many months. For those who find red beets a bit too earthy, try growing golden beets instead because they're sweeter and milder in flavor. Here's a quick beet growing tip. Once seedlings grow their first set of true leaves, start fertilizing with a fertilizer that has higher potassium than nitrogen because potassium is the nutrient responsible for root development and size. Mine are at that point now, so I just mix some organic AgroThrive fruit and flower liquid fertilizer in my watering can and poured it over my beet seedlings. I will repeat this about once every 10 days to grow very big beets. If you're still watching this, thank you for sticking around until the end. I have a bonus planting idea for you, and that is herbs. There are 2 ways to grow herbs right now. You can sow a ton of herbs indoors to grow your own transplants for planting in spring, or if you're in a warm winter climate, you can direct sow them just all over the place. Right now, I'm direct sowing all sorts of herbs under my tomato plants that are growing in grow bags. I also love to sprinkle cilantro and chamomile in bare spots around the garden. That way they fill up the empty space and block out the weeds. Thanks for sticking with me through this December garden guide. I've shared everything I'm currently working on in my own garden, and I hope it sparked some inspiration for you to get planting. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a big thumbs up. That helps out my channel more than you know. And please share it with other gardeners that you know would enjoy some planting inspiration. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of my gardening tutorials. Thanks for watching and happy gardening.